News and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820, WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
All right, 4 minutes after the hour, 2:04 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. This is the Court of Public Opinion. Your voice, your opinion, your attitude on the issues of the day. Glad you're along. By the way, let's give a programming note. We're going to be checking in from time to time with Brad Barton. We are just on the peripheral edge of an ice storm, which could make for a very, very, very difficult afternoon drive. So we're going to try to keep an eye on that and get you around the hot spots. Bottom line is this. It's very easy to come in here behind the microphone and start bitching and moaning about drivers. But I got to tell you, after working in Southern California for 17 years, flying back and forth every 10 days, bad drivers in California have nothing on the drivers in Dallas, Texas. It's a driving rainstorm. You can see about 5 feet in front of you, and everybody's trying to do the speed limit. Turn your lights on, number one. And 18-wheelers, God love you, you're professional drivers. Don't drive three abreast in a driving rainstorm because nobody can see anything. Get over to the left or over to the right. Just pick a side. Okay. Now, I've vented. I feel better. All right. Yesterday, of course, we had a conversation with Mayor Pro Tem Caraway, where he accepted my invitation to go to Eagle Gun Range and actually put hands on an AR-15 and get some education about what is legal, what is not. Just because an AR-15 was used in a horrific school shooting does not necessarily mean it's a full auto military style AR-15. And to his credit, he agreed to meet me at the Eagle Gun Range and go through this. Now, the only caveat was that I come to his office and listen to his side, which of course I will. Now, a lot of people were upset. Oh, you should have hammered him. You should have done this. Well, what would that serve? We'd be in the same boat we were yesterday. At least this way, maybe some education can be given, maybe more understanding about what we're dealing with will be had by everyone in attendance. I talked to David Prince, owner of Eagle Gun Range. He'll provide the semi-automatic. He'll provide the fully auto. He'll provide the ammunition. I think he even said he'd buy lunch. David, I'm going to hold you to that. And the Mayor Pro Tem said he would meet me there and go through this. So, fine. It'd be very difficult to speak about something once you have the facts. You got to talk about the facts, and that was the whole thing. Now, the Mayor Rawlings, which I don't expect will come on this show for various reasons, but that's his prerogative. He's free to do whatever he wishes. But today he was asked about the NRA because if you recall, Mayor Pro Tem Caraway was asking the NRA to go someplace else. Forget the 80,000 people coming, forget the $40 million influx of cash to the city. As far as I know, the NRA hasn't killed anyone. The perception is that somehow, some way, they are somehow connected with firearms used to kill all these kids. Well, that's absurd. That's in my opinion. Clayton Neville is an anchor and a reporter for WBAP, and he happened to be covering an event today. Most of you know who Andrew Agassi is, I think. Clayton Neville is with me. How you doing, Clayton?
Doing well. Appreciate it, Rick.
All right, let's see if we can get a mic on. All right, again.
Yeah, doing well. Appreciate it.
All right. Now tell us what was going on.
We were at an event, a new charter school opened and cut its ribbon today in Dallas, and so Andre Agassi, Tennis Hall of Famer, and Mayor Rawlings were there to cut the ribbon. And afterwards, I caught up with Mayor Rawlings and thought we'd ask him his stance on the NRA and the NRA convention coming to Dallas, because it's a big hot topic.
Up to this point, we've heard a lot from Mayor Pro Tem Caraway. I don't know that we've heard a lot from the mayor at all.
We hadn't heard at all from the mayor since Caraway came out and had that press conference on the City Hall steps a couple days ago.
Right, exactly. So you use that opportunity to sort of clear the decks, I guess.
That's right, yeah. So we asked Mayor Rawlings two things. First, we asked him what his stance was on the actual convention coming to Dallas itself, and if he had any plans of breaking that contract.
I would assume they have a contract with the city.
So that's exactly what he told us, is they have a contract and they have no plans to break that contract, although Mayor Rawlings said that if the NRA decided to break that contract, he wouldn't be heartbroken.
He wouldn't be heartbroken.
Yeah, that's what he said. And so, and then I asked him about his response to Dwayne Caraway's decision to come out and ask the NRA to go somewhere else, because that's essentially exactly what he did. And he said that he appreciated Mr. Caraway for doing that. He said he felt like he asked in a very polite way, and he said the NRA will do what they do. He asked him, they're going to come here, and the city's going to honor the contract.
So this, as a matter of fact, I've got some sound from Clayton Neville approaching the mayor, Mayor Rawlings, and this is what he had to say.
We've got a contract with them, and I don't think the city's going to break that contract. If they would break that contract, I wouldn't be heartbroken. But we're good. We got a handshake with them, and we're going to support that.
Okay, and I'm not trying to put words in the mayor's mouth. But if they would break that contract, I wouldn't be heartbroken. That sort of implies that he at least felt the same way as Mayor Pro Tem Caraway. Is that the feeling perhaps that you got? I mean, your news. We're dealing with facts where you're concerned.
Right. Could have been. He was not necessarily thrilled or not necessarily upset that they were coming to him. It seemed quite more like a business decision. We got to remember here that $40 million could come to the city from all of this, and 80,000 people are expected to come in that weekend in May through all of this as well. So from a mayor perspective, you got to think about that. So I think that, I think it'd be out of the question for him to terminate a contract like that, but I don't think he was prepared to come in and blast the NRA or, praise them or applaud them either.
Exactly. Well, he couldn't break, I would assume he couldn't break the contract without cause, and I don't know what the cause would be. If that's his personal feeling, then so be it. And even Mayor Pro Tem Caraway said he was not speaking on behalf of the city, but he was speaking on behalf of himself. You get into kind of dicey territory when elected officials are saying, okay, I'm not speaking for the city, but as far as I'm concerned, because their involvement is sort of assumed.
Right. And there have been several city council members that have come out since Caraway's press conference and said that, they may think there may need to be more gun control. They may or may not, but they don't necessarily agree with the fact that the convention needs to go somewhere else. And again, that could be the $40 million and the 80,000 people that it'll bring to the city.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I'm trying to figure out the connection people are making. Now, the kids, the teenagers, I understand, you have to look at youth, and I have my own opinion on how that's unfolding, but has anyone drawn a connection between the NRA and gun violence? I haven't seen that.
Well, I think that Mr. Caraway was stating that it was inappropriate for the NRA to come given the time, I think is what he was referring to. But as far as any direct connection to the NRA, no, I mean, they're not the ones that are creating these laws.
Right.
The laws are created by the lawmakers, and everyone in Florida, I was down in Florida last week, everybody in Florida that I spoke with was talking about lawmakers and even referring to President Trump.
Right.
They weren't necessarily calling on the NRA to do anything. They were more interested in, one, making sure these schools are more secure, and then two, enacting some gun laws to prevent somebody with mental illness from going in and buying a weapon as easily as Nicholas Cruz did. That's what I was hearing in Florida. People directly affected didn't say much about the NRA.
Clayton Neville, great job. I don't know if they were surprised to get that question after the event, but very, very good job, because obviously, not just the city of Dallas-Fort Worth, but the entire country is wondering about this after Mayor Pro Tem Caraway has made such a big splash about not wanting the convention here. Great job. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Rick. Thanks.
All right, 2:14 the time. We'll step aside very quickly, check that afternoon drive, and back with your calls. I'm Rick Roberts, News Talk 820 WBAP. All right, 18 minutes after the hour. Mayor Mike Rawlings was at an event. WBAP reporter Clayton Neville waited until after the event, asked a few questions about what his feelings were on the NRA coming or not coming to Dallas. Mayor Pro Tem Caraway has been very outspoken. I spoke with him yesterday for a period of time. I must have 100 different emails asking about that interview. It's on podcast. Maybe we'll replay it here in a bit. But the final result was it was obvious to me that he wasn't perhaps as educated on the AR-15 semi-auto versus full auto. I mean, I don't want to get into all that, but at least he agreed to meet me at a gun range and fire both the semi-auto and full auto to get an understanding that, okay, this is legal. This could be legal, but it's not easy. If it's prior to 1986, you can buy it, but it's extremely expensive. If it's post 1986, you need to have a pristine criminal record, lots of cash and lots of patience, and a dealer that's got a federal firearms license. So, when people say, it is too legal. Okay. Well, technically, yes, but generally speaking, no. In any case, Mayor Rawlings had been somewhat quiet on this whole issue, which I found a bit odd. I mean, you're talking 80,000 people coming here into Dallas for a convention, estimated $40 million influx of cash, and as far as I know, the NRA hasn't shot and killed anybody. And so, to his credit, Clayton Neville asked the question, what do you think about this?
He was asking them nicely to kind of back away, and they're going to do what they're going to do.
They're going to do what they're going to do. Okay, that's about as non-committal as you can be. But then he said something else that implied that maybe he didn't care one way or the other.
We've got a contract with them, and I don't think the city's going to break that contract. If they would break that contract, I wouldn't be heartbroken. But we're good. We got a handshake with them, and we're going to support that.
Okay, so if they broke the contract and didn't come, Mayor Rawlings, you wouldn't be heartbroken. Okay, well, David, if we could, I extend the same invitation to Mayor Rawlings that I extended to Mayor Pro Tem Caraway. Caraway at least had I need to be careful here, at least had, I can't even think of a word I can use on the air. Mayor Pro Tem Caraway at least accepted the invitation so he could put hands on what he was talking about.
That is correct.
So let's extend the same courtesy and invitation to Mayor Rawlings, unless, of course, he already knows everything there is to know about AR-15s, semi-autos, fully autos, and how they play into these school shootings. So make that they can come out together, as a matter of fact.
I already got I'm in the talks with the mayor's office right now to get him on the show, and also I will extend that invitation to him.
Okay, there you go. Can't ask for more than that. 2:22 the time. And of course, the kids in Florida, protesting in Tallahassee, Florida's capital. They want gun violence to stop. And look, we understand youth. What I don't care for is the fact that they're trotting these traumatized students out carrying the message of the anti-gun lobby. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's fair. I don't think they should be doing that. You think a bunch of 15-year-olds in study hall came up with this organized effort against Tallahassee, or the May 24th, what is it, March 24th, March on Washington? No, George Clooney, Oprah, Spielberg each donated $500,000 for the Washington March Against Gun Violence. And what are they doing? They're marching a bunch of 14, 15, and 16-year-old kids out. You know, as far as I'm concerned, that's abusing a child. They've been traumatized. Leave them alone. Leave them. And, you know, as I think about this, the anti-gun lobby has got these kids right where they want them. We're raising up a generation of people that say to themselves, well, we can't do anything on our own, therefore we need government at every level to protect us, to serve us. You know, this is exactly what socialist states pray for. You know, you need to be looking at this and saying, okay, what makes sense to us? Not going to Washington and asking them to do something. My God, they can't do anything in Washington. I mean, the Democrats, we're talking about gun violence all over the country, police officers being shot left and right. And what's going on in Washington? Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are asking for money. Well, what's new? Money to, we need more money to give to the FBI to stop the Russian meddling. First of all, do any of you believe that this is the first time this has ever happened? I just assume Russia has been meddling in our elections and other affairs for time immemorial. And I assume we're doing the same thing. So all of a sudden now, it's front and center. That's why this whole Russia thing, we've found no evidence. We've been chasing ghosts for a year. And now the Democrats, in true form, are asking for more money to chase ghosts. Okay. Let's go to Paul in Dallas. Paul, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good, Mr. Rick. How are you doing today, sir?
Good.
Hey, you know, the mayor said that if they broke the contract, she really had no problem with it. Well, if that's the case, why doesn't the city of Dallas, all the $40 million that's made, why don't they donate that? You know, if it's not a problem, it just goes to show you it's all about the money. They like to talk a good talk. I'm pro-gun. I'm ex-military. I've fired fully automatic weapons. I've fired semi-automatic weapons. There's a huge difference. All the singing and dancing right now is kind of pointless. It makes them feel good, but you know, all they're doing is, you know, trying to diminish rights of legal gun owners. Also, there's something else I wanted to bring up. You know, they've got these high school kids, supposed high school kids from Florida, and I say supposed because one of them, who's been very outspoken on TV, has been shown to be, like, I guess they're saying he's hired. He's an actual actor. I think his name is David Hogg. Have you heard anything about that? Yeah,
I've played some of David Hogg's sound bites. I don't know the backstory, and I'm not sure it makes a lot of difference, other than if you're using these traumatized kids to carry your anti-gun message after they've just survived a horrific school shooting. I think that's the lowest form of manipulation. Good call, Paul. I appreciate it. Eric Bushman standing by with the very latest breaking news, and we'll check that weather for you next on News Talk 820 WBAP. All right, 2:34 the time. This is the Court of Public Opinion, your voice, your opinion, your attitude on the issues of the day. Well, as, you know, if you want to stop school shootings, stop police shootings. Let me connect that for you. Shooting a police officer, if you've got it in you to kill a member of law enforcement, civilians don't mean anything. If you think about that. A Maryland police officer was shot and killed, and he was the second police officer murdered in 12 hours. Okay, so don't be surprised when this happens in the country. when police officers' lives are not valued any more than what we're seeing in the news every day, schools, civilians, kids don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. A Maryland Police Medal of Valor winner shot and killed today while intervening in a domestic violence dispute. The second police officer killed in the United States in 12 hours. So if you want to stop school shootings, stop police shootings. It all has to do with the valuation of human life. It has to do with respect. It has to do with viewing another human being as being as valuable as you are, or you think you are. You know, these are all interconnected. They are not separate from each other. If someone will shoot and kill a police officer, civilian lives mean nothing. Perhaps their own lives mean nothing. But that's where we are. We have gotten to the point where between, forgive me, I know you don't want to hear this, especially this goes out to George Clooney, Oprah, Spielberg, when movies are so violent, video games are, and I'm not talking about Space Invaders like we had when I was a kid. I mean, there are video games where you can kill 15 people on your way to pick up a hooker, then be pleasured in your car as you're speeding down the sidewalk running over people. That's what I'm talking about. When we desensitize youth to the point where human life doesn't mean anything anymore, then obviously it's going to manifest in our lives. When police officers are shot down on the street for trying to help people, that's a manifestation of the lack of human respect for life. Do you follow what I'm saying? This is not about an AR-15 or an A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is about the fact that we've imploded as a society. You know, liberalism has got us exactly where we are. No one values human life. People using abortion as a form of birth control. When you stop valuing human life, our kids aren't safe. Our law enforcement aren't safe. Here in Dallas, we had 5 police officers that were gunned down doing what? Protecting protesters that were protesting them. This is not going to, there is no easy fix. There's not a piece of legislation that can be passed. You know, all the liberals are trying to focus in on gun control, knowing full well it has nothing to do with controlling guns. It has to do with controlling one's behavior. If you don't value human life, people are going to die. All right, let's go to Matt in Keller. I promised I wouldn't go off on a rant today. Matt, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Matt?
You're welcome, sir. I have an invite for the NRA. If the Dallas mayor doesn't want them there, then I invite them over to Fort Worth. I mean, Fort Worth is where the West begins. Dallas is where the East peters out. So they can come over here, use the Omni, the Fort Worth Convention Hall, and have a grand old time.
Well, I think, the Mayor Rawlings, obviously there's a contract. That contract can't be broken except for cause. Mayor Pro Tem Caraway yesterday on the show had a bit of a change of heart, I think. I don't know what Mayor Rawlings' position is. I don't have a lot of faith in this mayor to do the right thing, but that's just me. They'll come to doubt. It's like they said, no politician can tell the NRA where to go and where not to go. The NRA's already here, as far as membership.
Yeah, I know. Mayor's just being mayor. He's trying to figure out whichever side of the political line he can fall on to get votes. But you were talking about the kids they had, the left was parading out and oh, I'm traumatized. And I saw one of the kids say, I don't think I can ever go to school again. And I'm like, looking at him going, are you kidding me? You're going to, you can't get your butt up, stand up, have a spinal column, and go back to school.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with these kids. Yes. Do I have compassion for them after, surviving a deadly school shooting? Of course I do. But I also raised a couple kids, and I was a kid, just like we all were. 14, 15, 16, it's a tough age anyway, even without a school shooting. They all want to grab onto something and become, embroiled in the group, whatever it is. It's up to the adults, to make sure this is handled properly. And loading them up on buses, whisking them off to Tallahassee, the state capital, and, protesting, things they don't even fully understand doesn't make sense. We want gun control. What kind of gun control do you want? Well, I don't know. Hang on. Let me ask the adult that organized all this. That to me is, that's pretty low. Manipulating and utilizing kids that have just gone through something like this. They need to have adults that truly care about them say, okay, this happened. Life's not fair. We're gonna stand up. We're not gonna treat everybody like a counseling victim. At some point you have to have an adult in the room, to help get them through this. And instead, the adults in the room are the anti-gun lobbies that are trying to utilize them to convey and carry the message. And that's wrong. I don't care who you are. That's wrong. It's just like these police officer shootings. These men and women don't get up every day. Okay, whose life can I make miserable today? They get up every day doing their job, enforcing the law, and wanting to come home to their wife and kids and dogs and, backyard barbecues at the end of the shift. But that's not the message being conveyed by the left, by the liberals. They don't like cops because the cops enforce parameters, guidelines, laws. They don't like that. They don't want guns. Look. You are smart enough to figure this out. You truly are. I know you are. Because we've talked about it so much. All right. Let me, David, you gotta rein me in because this is one of those days when I could go off on a rant. All right.
I'm watching the clock now.
All right. Let me step aside very quickly. Let's check that afternoon drive and see how bad this weather's going to get. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. Your call straight ahead. All right. 2:47 the time. Students began walking out of their Florida schools today to show solidarity for the high school shooting victims at Marjorie Douglas Stoneman High School, while pushing for tighter gun control. I've yet to hear any policy change. These walkouts happened as thousands of kids all over the state converged on the state's capital. You think some 15-year-old put that together in study hall? No, I don't think so. The anti-gun lobbies behind this. And they're using these kids, victimizing these kids for a second time. These walkouts happened hundreds of miles away from the Parkland school. They're trying to press legislators to take action. What action? One of them said, we spoke only to a few legislators, and try as they might, the most we've gotten out of them is we'll keep you in our thoughts. You're so strong. You're so powerful. This is Delaney Tarr. She's a senior at the school. She was telling the AP, we know what we want. We want gun reform. We want common sense gun laws. We want change. We're going to let 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids legislate gun reform? Come on. Of course, your heart breaks for these kids, but no. We've had enough of thoughts and prayers. If you supported us, you would have made a change long ago. What change? What change? So this is to every lawmaker out there. No longer can you take money from the NRA. What does that mean? She said, we as kids are coming after you. We are coming after every single one of you, demanding that you take action. Now, I'm going to say something, and don't take it the wrong way. That's the rambling of a teenager. without any life experience. What do you want? We want gun reform. We want change. What kind of change? And what does the NRA have to do with any of this? Remember the men who value the NRA over children's lives. What does that mean? Now, I'm asking honestly, what does that mean? Then they listed Republicans in Florida's congressional delegation. The AP reported another sign said, "Kill the NRA, not our kids." What does that mean? They don't even know what it means. You know, you've got to have some basis for factual information here. You know, these teenagers split into several groups to talk with lawmakers and other state leaders about gun control, the legislative process, the mental health issues, some of them crying, ask why civilians should be allowed to have weapons like AR-15s. You know how many AR-15 type rifles there are? I would venture to say over 100. They're semi-automatic rifles. They're used for varmint shooting and hunting. Again, I'm sorry. I understand these kids have been involved. Well, some of them have been directly involved. Others are just trying to join the herd. When Florida Senate President Joe Nigrin heard the question, he didn't answer directly. He said, "That's an issue we're reviewing." No, you're not. You know, don't tell them you're doing something when you're not. Tell them the truth. When another lawmaker said he supported raising the age to buy assault-style weapons, and it's wordsmithing here that's getting everyone into trouble. Assault-style weapons. He wants to raise it to 21 from 18. Then the students started applauding. The Florida Senate opened its session by showing pictures of all 17 victims in the attack. You know as well as I do, you can take something and build it up into an insurmountable problem by simply giving it the wrong type of attention. Busload after busload after busload of students arrived at the Capitol late yesterday. They stayed overnight with the students in the Civic Center. They stayed up until 5 a.m. researching, writing, preparing to talk with politicians. That's great. Now let's get back to some sense of normalcy. And again, I'm not sure that I totally understand the connection with the NRA. I don't get it. It's even like Mayor Pro Tem Caraway yesterday. You know, I pressed him several times. What has the NRA got to do with this? All right. Let's get to where are we going? Roy in Dallas. Roy, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Roy?
Doing okay, sir. Thank you for entertaining my call. First of all, I don't want to see you unbridled or bridled. I don't want to see you muzzled. You know, I take pleasure in hearing your comments and your thoughts, as well as the knowledge you have regarding certain subjects. In regard to Deputy Mayor Dwayne Caraway, the City of Dallas and the City Council, each year they go through the budget appropriations, and they devote many millions of dollars to public safety. I had wished that Dwayne Caraway had contacted David Pugh, the Assistant Chief of the Dallas Police Department, and said, "Hey, I've got some questions regarding assault weapons, including the AR-15s. What is a better source of where the City of Dallas budget money goes for public safety?" And say, could I have an invite to go out to Dallas Police Department, Johnny Hartswell Fire Training Center, and get some instruction and get some idea from the Dallas Police Department gunsmiths and firearms instructors in regards to the different weapons that are used by the Dallas Police Department and the tactical officers. That he could also see on a gun range how the AR-15 functions, as well as Heckler and Koch and any other variation of weapon out there. Next of all is the thoughts of the NRA he doesn't realize how well the NRA also devotes time for the training of Olympians in each year.
Well, no. Yeah, I mean, as a matter of fact, David, do you have that full interview all together that we can run?
I have them in 2 parts, but you want me to put them all together in one?
Yeah, if you do that, I'll satisfy the people that are listening on the apps. I've got a ton of email that it's going to be very difficult to get to about the interview we had with Mayor Pro Tem Caraway yesterday. And we're extending the same invitation to Mayor Rawlings as well. But then again, maybe he already has all that information. We'll do that for you next. 2:55 the time. Eric Bushman standing by in the WBAP newsroom, very latest breaking news, and we'll take your calls. I'm Rick Roberts, News Talk 820 WBAP.
This is the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820 WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts. Rick Roberts starts right now.
All right, 5 minutes after the hour. I was just talking to Ernie Brown in the hallway, and we were kind of going over show notes, and I said, well, I'm just kind of house cleaning. There's so much going on in so many different directions. Somebody asked me, believe it or not, out of hundreds of email, I've had 2 people saying, are you going to talk about the Mueller investigation? The what? The Russian meddling? No, I'm not, and I'll tell you why. I don't believe for a second, this is the first time Russia's ever tried to meddle in U.S. elections. And to follow that up, I'm quite sure that we've tried to meddle in theirs. That's what countries do to each other. You've found no evidence of any collusion between this administration and Russia. I'm tired of spending money on it, to be honest with you. Let's go to Tom in Fort Worth. Tom, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Tom?
I am enjoying your show, Rick.
Thank you.
Hey, I'll get right to the point. I know you've got listeners not only in Texas, but because of the internet and satellite radio, you've probably got listeners, and I would venture at least 40 of the 50 states. And this would be a call to action because you were mentioning the other day, what can we actually do now? And here's something we could do. We could all contact our representative state senators, and we could ask that they put together emergency legislation requesting that President Trump move the $500+ million that's already in the budget from Planned Parenthood, move it over to the respective states so that they can harden the various high schools across the country. Start with the high schools, and then they could put them into 3 classifications, A, B, C, depending on population of the schools. Get armed guards in there immediately, put door locks on all the exterior doors, individual locking mechanisms that are available on the internet for, the interior classroom doors, and they could put that $500+ million into immediate problem resolution activity, and that would show that, yes, we are proactive when we're doing something. But then from a psychological perspective, I think the people like George Clooney, Rosie O'Donnell, Maxine Waters, Chuck Schumer, everybody that benefits from having a private, fully armed security detail, I think they need to renounce the use of firearms, and they need to get rid of their security details and become regular citizens, because that's what they're asking us to do, is go unarmed and unprotected. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I mean, I have some very definitive viewpoints on this. The Second Amendment hasn't changed since the Founding Fathers put it in. It hasn't changed at all. Not one word. So if it hasn't changed, what's changed? Why are we seeing schools being shot up? Why are police officers that are there to stand between you and any harm that could come to you, why are they being gunned down? It's because of us. We've changed. The fact that we don't value human life. And I'm sorry, and I don't mean to sound like, somebody beating the drum, but you can desensitize someone to the point where they don't value anything. Between movies and video games and the coarseness and shrill rhetoric we get from all levels of government, abortion, all those things combined, not one individually, but combined, it is a degradation of society. And at the same time, we desensitize people to the value of human life. You take God out of everything and make everything okay, then you're going to have this problem. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get rid of it overnight. If somebody were to ask me, okay, Rick, we're going to take your suggestion. You put armed police officers in every school. That means you need to start paying police officers what they're worth. Generally speaking, we don't. You put police officers in every school, control the ingress and egress, and that's a Band-Aid until we start trying to revalue human life. You put rules, regulations, guidelines, parameters, responsibility for action, and guess what? Whether you're religious or not, all that comes with a belief in God. So that's my idea. You got a quick fix and a long-term goal. At least that's my idea. Let's go to Andrew in Highland Park. Andrew, thanks for waiting. How you doing?
Hey, Rick, how are you?
Good.
I got first of all, a comment and then a question. So first of all, my comment is I am tired of being lectured by 15-year-olds on national TV.
Well, you wouldn't, MSNBC, CNN, if all these kids came out collectively and said, we need armed police officers in our schools, do you think CNN would break into their regular programming to show that? Of course not.
No, sir. And then my question is, so I travel for a living, and I just did a trip to D.C., and I'm listening to these eight kids that were lecturing to all of us on the Sunday morning shows, and my question is, I just did a trip to D.C., and my entire trip cost $6,000 for 3 days. I'm wondering, who is paying for this?
Right. Well,
when I was 15 years old, and you and I, when we were 15 years old, how much money did we have in our pocket?
Well, I was buying cards to clothespin in the spokes of my bicycle, so it sounded like a motorcycle. That's what I was doing at 14 years old. So, no, these kids are being manipulated and utilized by the anti-gun lobby and by the liberals. The liberals, that liberal mindset that has no consequence for action, that liberal mindset is why we are exactly where we are.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. 12 minutes after the hour, 3:12 the time. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Your call straight ahead in the court of public opinion.
WBAP Traffic Watch.
In Dallas, the Dallas southbound, still some heavy traffic. This report brought to you by Levy and Son Service Experts. Dallas North Tollway southbound at Northwest Highway. We still see 2 right lanes blocked due to that accident. Traffic is still delayed from Walnut Hill Lane through Northwest Highway area. Also in Fort Worth, East 820 southbound at Meadowbrook Drive. A left lane remains blocked. They're still trying to clean up that accident mess. Levy and Son, the heating, cooling, and plumbing brand that's been trusted by your neighbors for 108 years. Call 866-EXPERTS today and receive $30 off any repair. That's 866-EXPERTS. With the WBAP Right Now Traffic Watch, I'm Marty Jones.
Marty, thank you very much. Great job. Open Door. It's a new inventive way to sell your home. This is Rick Roberts. Have you ever tried to sell a home? I have several times. It was a nightmare each time. Not because of the realtor. It was because first you have a buyer, then you don't. Then he's got financing, then it falls through. It's not your everyday traditional home selling transaction. OpenDoor.com is a lot easier. You can sell your home directly to Open Door. Skip all the hassle normally associated with selling your home. No getting your home show ready. No open houses to schedule your life around. No strangers in and out of your home, and I hated that. It's a lot faster. You can get a free offer on your home in less than 24 hours, and you can close on your timeline, not somebody else's, as quickly as 3 days or as long as 2 months. And it's transparent. This is the good part. The pricing you see from opendoor.com, it's based on current real estate market conditions in your area. Competitive fair market offers backed by market data, comps of home sales in your neighborhood, across the street, down the block, 2 blocks over. Visit opendoor.com. Do it today to request a truly free offer on your home, even if you're just thinking about selling your home. Opendoor.com. For those that want to sell their home but not give it away, you don't have to. Go to opendoor.com. You know, it's very difficult. And the uber left, the liberals, they know how to work this. Who among us doesn't have some compassion for kids that just lost scores of their schoolmates by some monster shooting the place up? No one wants to draw that hard line and say, look, life's not fair. It happens. If you want us to listen to you, certainly come up with something and, we'll talk about it. But you're teenagers. Your brain's not even fully developed at this point. You're being used and manipulated by a bunch of adults on the far left. And, you have to realize that. But no one out there is saying that. No one is saying it. And I'll be honest, there are a bunch of politicians out there that are playing the same manipulation game as everyone else. Dwayne in Fort Worth. Dwayne, thank you for waiting. Hi.
Hey, Rick. Glad to talk to you. First, I'd like to say my condolences to all of the people in our country who have been slaughtered by morons and monsters. But that said, it really irritates me that media types are giving these children a voice when they're not even citizens.
They're not citizens?
No, not legally. They have no legal rights. Anyways.
Yeah, I'm not following that line of thought.
Well, they don't pay taxes until they get a job, and they're not responsible for anyone other than themselves. Basically, they don't have to worry about putting food on the table, paying for the lights, or anything else.
Well, you're saying they haven't reached the age of maturity where they can vote and so on. I got it. Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, they have some basic rights, but they don't really have the rights of the national. Okay. And what they're being done, I've been reading about Mao Zedong, and it's funny how the first thing he did was try to unionize the peasants, which he did. And then he went to women's rights, and then he spent 20-plus years trying to gain power, and then he finally did the smartest thing. He wrote that little pamphlet and preached it to the children and got the children to start pushing the agenda. And that's exactly what they're doing right now.
No, hopefully you're listening to Dwayne because he's giving you some education. This is not the first time that someone that wants to fundamentally change the country has utilized children, in order to carry their message. That's exactly what's going on.
That's exactly what's going on. And you can expect more of this. We've experienced it with the 99 percenters, Black Lives Matter, and with Antifa. It's all juvenile, young 20s, college free spaces, college-age kids, still not responsible adults. And they're not educated. We have allowed them to infiltrate our bureaucracies and our educational system, and they're not being taught how many millions of people have died under Marxism.
Yeah.
And what I would ask you, because I've heard you for the last 2 hours plus all the other days, and it's not just you, but we have been too nice to them by using their own terminology to describe them as leftists, progressives, and liberals. They are Marxists. And if you use the term Marxist, that will wake everybody or start waking people up, because they're going to have to look up what a Marxist is if they don't know, which they probably don't.
Well,
That's my 2 cents.
No. I understand, and it makes sense. It's just at some point, we have to come back to reality, and reality in this case is not comfortable. We have there are people in this country that have declared war on law enforcement, have declared war on anybody that is politically countering them. Just like this kid in Florida. It's because of liberals that we don't have a place to put these mentally ill people. The police were called to his house 39 times in 6 years? That's enough of a red flag for me, I would think. Let's go to Martin in Euless. Martin, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Martin?
Great. How are you doing? Thank you so much for taking my call. I just wanted to make a comment regarding, the NRA getting blasted and all this. My son came home yesterday and he played a clip of a late night comedian blasting the NRA and, of course, Donald Trump while I was at it. And so I turned to him and I said, let me ask you this. Does the NRA, advocate for the killing of children? He goes, no. And I said, at any of the rallies, have you ever heard of the NRA members, turning over cop cars, destroying the city, looting buildings, and things like that? And he goes, no. I said, has anybody in the NRA, advocated for the killing of police officers? And he goes, no. And I said, well, there are groups on the left that do that very thing. And so my point is if the NRA, if we were all the violent extremists as they claim that we are, if we really were, you'd have a problem because there's about 4 million of them with a whole lot of weapons. And it's just the NRA is much more than just a gun organization. They do have safety classes. They promote safety and gun ownership and responsibility and so on. And it's just it's deplorable that the left is using these kids to advance their position. And the reason why they're doing it is because they can't advance their position on their own.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's make no mistake about it. This is up to us. This is not a hardware issue. It's a human being issue. And that's why nobody wants to recognize it. That's very, very difficult to deal with because it doesn't happen overnight. It's a progressive degeneration of value of human life. I laughed out loud when I heard George Clooney, Oprah Winfrey, and Spielberg were donating $500,000 each to the Washington March Against Gun Violence. Spielberg's never made violent movies. George Clooney's never been involved in violent movies. Oprah Winfrey and her investments has never been a part of that. Come on. We were born at night, but not last night. It makes absolutely no sense. All right, Eric Bushman is standing by in the WBAP newsroom, the very latest breaking news. We need to take a look at that afternoon drive to get you around the hot spot safe and sound. We're on the very, very edge of an ice storm. We'll probably hear from Brad Barton as well. When we come back, I will take your calls and also Mayor Pro Tem Caraway from yesterday. And again, Mayor Rawlings, if you're listening, I extend the same invitation that your Mayor Pro Tem accepted. Will you? We'll find out. All right, 3:32 the time. Well, as most of you are aware, Mayor Pro Tem Caraway made a lot of noise talking to the press, holding a press conference downtown, asking the NRA not to come to Dallas. I tried most of the show yesterday to get a hold of him and finally did. This is how that went. Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for being with me.
Well, thank you, Brother Rick.
I have to ask you,
okay.
You said you want the NRA to go someplace else other than Dallas by taking a stand against gun violence. What does the NRA have to do with the shooting in Florida?
Well, it's the same responsibility, Rick, that I personally feel that we, myself, you as a man and other men out here and all citizens have a responsibility to make sure that we're doing everything in America to make sure that all families, all human beings, everybody is safe. That also carries into Dallas, Texas. The NRA convention is scheduled to come here, and it is going to come on May the 4th through the 6th.
Right.
At the end of the day, what has taken place across the country with people being silent and no movement. Now, I'm so proud, I'll say that 27 minutes ago, President Trump has directed the Justice Department to ban rapid-fire bomb stocks, okay?
Yeah, everyone...
We're making progress.
Mayor Pro Tem,
making progress. Go ahead.
The NRA agreed on that after the Vegas shooting.
But look how long ago the Vegas shooting was. Look at what has taken place. And it wasn't a bum stock in Florida, but look how long it has taken. That is something that should have happened immediately.
You know what? You get no argument from me on that count. But the NRA is not the one responsible for passing the legislation.
Here's the deal. The NRA, here's the deal. The big gorilla in the room who represents National Rifle Association, guns, and all of that type of equipment, they happen to be someone that you must lean on and depend on them to help lead the way.
They did.
Hold on. Now, they are the ones that can make the difference, is the very reason that they've supported throughout the years different politicians and those folks to make sure that their interest was heard and presented. I can't come to you, Rick, and say, okay, you get this done. We have to look and take advantage of the opportunity if we're going to be serious about making sure that the citizens of our city and our country are going to be safe. Let's at least strike the spark, in which we did strike the spark, to begin the conversation as an NRA member was here in my office today, here at City Hall at 1 o'clock. And he even began to educate me, and I re-educated him, and we began a conversation.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem, that's great, and I applaud that. But when some city leader, and, you know, whether people agree or not, that's your position. When he says, I want the NRA to go someplace else, I don't want the 80,000 members here, the city doesn't need the $40 million, and it's based on, forgive me, but it's based on scare tactics like marches and demonstrations. Who's going to be marching and demonstrating?
Here's the deal. Here's the inside information I want you and all of the listeners to understand. There's a convention coming to town, to Dallas. It is going to come. There are protests already slated that the public don't know anything about. These kids in Florida, this is a whole new era of people expressing themselves, but young people that are expressing themselves. These folks and others are going to convene in, and they're planning now to convene in on Dallas to protest every single day that the convention is here.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, how do you know that?
I just told you, intelligence have told us. I know what we're talking about.
No, I'm not asking you to give away a confidence. I'm saying, how do you know that?
I'm telling you what has been said to me and to other folks.
And what has been your retort, Mayor Pro Tem?
Okay, all right, here's where we're at. Let me settle it down. So now, I have a responsibility to say, okay, now, if this is going to take place, we got a convention. We need to ring a bell, okay? Now, I rang the biggest bell that I could ring to begin the conversation that should have taken place a long time ago.
What conversation is that?
The conversation as to how do we address the rules, the laws that are on the books that have been there for more than 100 years plus, touch them up, tweak them today to fit today's society, because these rules were a long time ago. I'm a Second Amendment fanatic.
Are you suggesting, Mayor Pro Tem, that we change the Second Amendment in some form or fashion?
No, you don't change it. But the rules on the books have changed because times have changed.
Okay, that's where I don't understand. You say you're an advocate for the Second Amendment.
Okay.
But then you tell the NRA, which has nothing to do with gun violence, has nothing to do but educating people and advocating for gun owners.
They have all to do with guns, okay? That's number one.
Well, so does Colt and Smith & Wesson, but
we understand that, but who has a closer relationship with Colt and Smith & Wesson, the NRA or Dwayne?
Forgive me, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm not
Colton Smith.
I'm not trying to be an antagonist here. I'm trying to make sense of what you've said.
Okay, so here's the deal. There are laws that have been on the books forever, and it is right and okay to review laws to strengthen them.
Give me an example.
To tweak them. I can't give you all.
Well, I don't want all. Just give me one example.
Well, assault rifles.
What's an assault rifle?
AR-15.
That's not an assault rifle.
Well, I don't know that, but the NRA knows it, and then they come and educate us to it.
An assault rifle is a fully automatic weapon made for military use. I have 2 AR-15s, Mayor Pro Tem. Neither one of them are fully automatic. Are you saying that should be changed?
Well, here's the deal. What weapon was used to kill the kids? What weapon was used? Let's go with that in Florida.
Well, okay, that makes Mayor Pro Tem, that makes no sense.
No, well, it does make sense to me.
No, what if he'd have used a brick? We're going to go to Acme Brick and outlaw bricks?
He didn't use a brick. What did he use, Rick? What did they use at Sandy Hook? What did they use?
What difference did they use? Wait a minute. They didn't use fully automatic assault weapons.
What did they use in Las Vegas? What did they use here in Dallas when 5 police officers were killed?
The 5 police officers that were defending the people protesting them. I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, if somebody uses an AR-15 improperly and under a criminal color, are you saying then whatever weapon is used, we must get rid of?
No, I didn't say that. You said it.
Okay. Well, do you understand how an AR-15? And I'm not being belligerent. I'm asking because I'm curious. Do you understand how a semi-automatic rifle works?
I don't know because I don't have one. I don't have a need for one.
Right. Well, no, you don't because you probably have armed security.
I don't. I have a 38, a shotgun, a couple of them.
Okay. A semi-automatic weapon that's magazine fed. It takes less than 5 seconds to change the magazine. It's not fully automatic. It's legal.
Okay. It is legal. And maybe, Rick, what we should do, because of the way that these people are acquiring these weapons, what is wrong with a conversation? What is wrong with a review of how we continue to support the Second Amendment, people's rights to bear arms, but put the proper safeguards in place so it would make it a little bit tougher so that mentally ill people and people that should not have
I've got no argument with that, but you didn't say that.
Well, but that is the intent.
I've got a question, Mayor Pro Tem. I've got a question.
Go ahead.
And I'm not going to be a hypocrite because I have not had great things to say about you before you came on. But I'm inviting you to meet me at Eagle Gun Range, and we will fire an AR-15, and we will fire an AR-15 auto. And you can see right there the difference. One is legal, one is not, unless you're a dealer or you're a collector or something like that. Okay. Would you want to do that?
Oh, here's the deal. I am trying to make sure, it is my responsibility to make sure that we only get people to the table. Just as you just invited me to do that, I'd be crazy not to accept the invitation so I can learn more.
Exactly.
Out here. But at the end of the day, if indeed that is the weapon of choice that is harming human people and causing them their lives, then we need to discuss it. Now, just as you asked me, would you come to my office when we sit down and we debate this?
Absolutely.
Not on the radio.
Absolutely.
We talk about it and we try to make sense.
I tell you what,
Mayor, one focus, though.
Mayor Pro Tem, I will meet you.
To be able to save people's lives.
I will meet you anywhere, anytime. If you will meet me at Eagle Gun Range, and you will see there's not 1 or 2 or 3. There are dozens of AR-15 style rifles that are legal to sell. We will fire both a semi-automatic and automatic, and you can see see the difference and why one is legal and one is not. Quite honestly, there's very, very few times that a fully automatic weapon is useful in law enforcement. It's just, it just isn't.
But let me ask you this. Now, we both kind of calm a little bit. I don't know how much time you got, but let me ask you this. You own 2 AR-15s. What do you do with them?
I bought them for collecting purposes.
All right, collecting purposes, okay? Good deal. Because can you hunt with them?
Absolutely.
Okay. How much damage do they do?
It's a .223 round. It's not bad at all. As a matter of fact, Mayor Pro Tem, I am about 5 minutes over my break. Eric Bushman is going to be coming in here and beating me around the head and neck. Would you ask the Mayor Pro Tem if we can call him back in about 5 minutes and we'll firm this up? That's how that went. There's another part to that, which I'll play for you next. So now we've gone to from NRA don't come here to, okay, I will go to Eagle Gun Range and become educated. It's very difficult to argue against something after you've been educated on it and seen the factual evidence. Mayor Pro Tem, can you explain why that's a bad idea?
Well, here's the deal. I think that we have now begun to accomplish the goal that we should have accomplished a long time ago, and that's coming to the table. You know, sometimes you have to have backbone, and you have to take on the big gorilla in order to get the conversations going as you and I are talking now. I think education as relate to the NRA and what the NRA does, because in talking with the gentleman Kermit today, he explained and said a lot of great things that the NRA does, but we don't know about those things. The only thing that we see is the news. The only thing we hear is the news. The only thing the news says is about assault weapons, AR-15s, and this and that and the other. That's what we absorb. Now, the NRA, with me calling out the NRA, this gives us an opportunity to come to the table. You've invited me to the gun range. I've accepted that invitation so that we can learn more about it. But now, the rules currently, Rick, that are on the books have been on the books for a number of years. It is nothing wrong with reviewing the rules that's been on the books, tweaking where rules might need to be tweaked, closing some gaps, changing some things that have changed along with the time to make things and keep things, you know, rolling in order.
Okay,
without my standing up, we would not be talking about it today.
Okay, may I ask this? I have no problem with tweaking anything that needs to be tweaked, but changing something for purely political purposes so that people somehow think something's been done, we've seen far too much of that in Washington. We don't need that.
But here's the deal. And so now we don't know what needs changing, okay? We just know these people got killed in Las Vegas. These folks got killed in Florida. These folks got killed in Sandy Hook. All of these things have been taking place. That's all the general public knows. Now, the members of the NRA, they know differently, as you've explained it, but the public doesn't know. Now, here's the deal. To the politicians that the NRA has been giving all the money to, here's the deal. Don't give it to the politicians. Take that money. Let's build some mental health hospitals, and let's do some programs. Let's do some other things to educate and hold the elected officials still accountable. You know, sometimes you got to step on somebody's toe to get their attention to begin the conversation that you and I are having now. Hey, look. The NRA is going to come to Dallas. We can't stop the NRA from coming to Dallas, but
well, you would, if I'm to understand this correctly, as long as there's an ongoing conversation, as long as there's education, and I agree, there needs to be a lot of education. People generally are afraid of those things they don't understand, and a lot of people don't know anything about guns. You know, I don't know what needs to be tweaked, if anything.
But whose responsibility is it? Is it your responsibility, mine, or is the better person and the better group to explain that the NRA?
Well, they can be a part of it.
That's my point.
I mean, but they are. You know about their gun education courses, right?
No, we don't know about their gun education courses.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, in the interest of time, I have accepted your invitation. you have accepted mine. And you will take a look at the many different firearms that are legal and illegal for a man on the street just to walk in and buy. I think, based on what you've said today versus what I've read you've said, it makes a lot more sense.
Right.
But then, that's always the way it is. I still maintain, I'm not trying to shove Christianity down anybody's throat, but that Second Amendment has been around for a long time. It hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed are human beings. We no longer value human life, and that ultimately has to be the goal. We have to start valuing human life. We've got to start hitting our knees and looking up for the answers to our problems.
You're preaching, and that's the right thing that we need to say. Those are the right things we need to do. Now we need to get in one huddle and figure that out so we can move forward. Back in the day, they used to have bow and arrows. Come on, man.
All right.
The bow and arrows went to something else, okay?
Dallas.
So we'll have to keep going. But I appreciate you. I want you to know that. And I hope your listeners will please understand that the only way we can solve a problem is that we can begin with a conversation.
All right. Well, I look forward.
I'm going to have your David to get with my office, and we're going to get that set up, and we'll set it up, and we'll go for it, and let's not waste no time.
All right. That was the conversation with Mayor Pro Tem Caraway yesterday. And David, you have been in touch with, somebody said, why are we talking to him? He's the Mayor Pro Tem. I didn't elect him, but enough people in Dallas did. You know what a mayor pro tem is? Pro tem's a Latin word, meaning temporary. Some cities have vice mayors, other cities have pro tem. So he takes the place of the mayor if the mayor is not available. Whether you like him, whether you don't, somebody elected this guy. David, you set up, you're setting up this meeting, right?
I'm working on it.
All right. 3:55 the time. Eric Bushman standing by in the WBAP newsroom. When we come back, nothing but your calls. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. I'm Rick Roberts, News Talk 820 WBAP.
It's the news and talk of Texas. Now, it's the Rick Roberts Show on 820 AM, 99.5 FM, HD2, News Talk 820 WBAP.
Well, I know there's got to be a few 100 million more like me, just trying to keep it free. Yeah.
Rick Roberts starts right now.
I'm supposed to be going back to school in less than a week. And I'm not ready. I don't think anybody here is ready. I don't think anybody here is ready to go back to class and just have an empty seat. And you know that empty seat is because someone's dead. Because somebody lost their lives.
All right. It's hard not to feel for these kids, but what is happening to these kids now is just as bad. Being used, manipulated, trotted out by the anti-gun lobby. What's going on with these kids right now is the second victimization of these kids from a Florida high school. Life is not fair. And as much as you want somebody to take care of you, it's impossible to stop every bad thing that happens in life. We've heard a lot about bump stocks. That's what the guy in Vegas used. Everybody said get rid of him. NRA agreed. The NRA doesn't pass legislation in D.C., so you can lay that at the doorstep of D.C. politicians. Yesterday, Trump signed a memorandum instructing the Department of Justice to do just that. We don't have, forgive me, it's an antiquated term, but insane asylums anymore. We don't have those. Liberals told us that was cruel and unusual punishment. So what happens? People with mental deficiencies are arrested, held for 24 hours, and released back on the streets. As much as you want, see, this is my biggest fear. We've got a whole generation now that is looking to government to protect them. That's not how the country started. That's not how the country was maintained. Government can't protect you. I'm going to say it again to everyone that will listen. Government at any level, city, county, state, federal, cannot protect you under every circumstance. You are your own first responder. Law enforcement is your immediate help. But the last administration tried to throw them under the bus and federalize law enforcement. Trust me, you don't want that. These kids, certainly, we need to feel for them. But they are kids. They are teenagers. Some of them wake up in a new world every day. You've got to have compassion for what they went through. Now, get back to school. Understand that government is not your daddy, never will be, even though they try to be, because the more people that are dependent on them, the more powerful they become. Do you understand what I mean? Do you get what I'm trying to put out there?
I think with any movement there comes this amount of hating and trolling and people telling you that you're just a little kid, you don't know what you're talking about, or you're a puppet. But ultimately we have to move past all of that because the amount of support that we're getting is so overwhelming compared to everything else. Okay.
Spoken like a true teenager. And you know what? I want them to be teenagers for as long as they can be teenagers. You know, with George Clooney, Oprah, Steven Spielberg coming out, I've got 500,000. Well, I've got 500,000. Let's march against gun violence on Washington. You're not helping these kids. You're prolonging their agony. All right. Man, I wish I had like an hour just to talk. I know. I've got a clock. Angelo in Arlington. Angelo, thank you for waiting. How you doing?
Thank you, Rick. I'm doing great, and I'm going to follow up on what you just said. I'll be quick, but I want to compliment you and David for persisting to get the pro tem mayor on your show, because when I saw him on TV, he was just ranting and raving, didn't know what he was talking about, that you got him to have a civilized conversation after he tried to continue his rant, but you got him in a post. Now that he's opened up the door to you, let me tell you, this is what my statement I want to make, and then you can maybe ask him to engage this conversation next time. President Reagan, if you remember, referred to the Soviet Union as, and they were a socialist country, as the evil empire. You remember that?
Sure.
I refer to the Democratic Party and the liberal media as the new evil empire for not passing on a tragedy to promote their agenda, manipulate school children to get socialism in America for their power to have a seat in the government to control we the people. I wrote it down. Then I said they are responsible for moving God and prayer out of schools, and children have no education or direction if they don't get it from their parents and schools to realize that God created us all, and it's our duty to protect his creation and keep all of us safe. How many unborn were butchered by Planned Parenthood yesterday with knives? So ask the pro tem mayor to fight to defund them and take that money to use to make the schools safe.
Well, Angelo,
it's not about.
I understand what you're saying. This is the thing. You know, I had a lot of people say, you know, why didn't you, you beat the pro tem mayor up? What was the purpose? You know, I'm not sitting here like a shock jock. Boy, I really told him. I want him to understand what he's talking about, because what he was talking about, it was obvious he was not rooted in an educated opinion. So not only did we have a conversation, I've got him agreeing on air to go out to a gun range and actually put his hands on what he's legally able to buy and what he's not legally able to buy. And of course, they're the people that will say, well, it is legal. Yes, it's legal. If you find a dealership with a federal firearms license, if you got tons of cash and tons of time to wait around, or you want to spend 20 grand for a pre-1986. Without getting into the details, he needed the information. Then if he still doesn't change the rhetoric, that's the time you beat somebody up. After they have the information, they have the facts at hand, then what does he have to say? If he still ignores the facts and the education, then obviously you're dealing with something that can't be dealt with, and you act accordingly. Listen, I appreciate the call. 12 minutes after the hour. We need to check that afternoon drive. Also, we need to check and make sure this ice storm is not getting any closer. 1-800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-9227. I'm Rick Roberts. You're on News Talk, 820 WBAP. 4:18 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. This is the Court of Public Opinion on News Talk, 820 WBAP, with you every day, Monday through Friday from 2 to 5. Your afternoon drive. Just check with Brad Burton. Barton, the temperatures have stabilized, and yeah, it's wet and it's going to be cold, but so far we're in pretty good shape. So just take it easy. Don't treat it like a sunny afternoon in the summertime. Watch what you're doing. Turn your lights on. And if you're driving an 18-wheeler, do us all a favor, man. Don't do three abreast down the interstate. Just pick a side. You know as well as I do, trying to follow an 18-wheeler in the rain is like flying blind. All right, let's. That's enough. Enough griping, Rick. Okay, fine. Let's go. Stefani, is that correct? Am I saying that correct, Stefani?
It's just Stephanie.
Stephanie. All right.
Hi there. Thanks, Rick. Hey, I just wanted to touch base on the mental health part of this. You know, I was watching Fox News earlier, and one of the Parkland High School students that had speeches ready, and they got up there, and they were talking about their experience and this and that. And one young lady really stuck out. You know, she ended her speech with, NRA, we're coming after you, and you're going to have to answer to us. And she was very adamant that the NRA is to blame, and it really. I have 4 young kids in school in public school, and
okay, Stephanie, are you on speakerphone?
No, I'm not.
Okay, because I can just barely hear you. You're very muffled.
Let me.
Okay,
is that better?
That's much better. Yes.
Sorry about that. Where did I lose you?
You were talking about the young lady in Washington.
Yeah, and she ended her conversation, her podium time with, the NRA, we're coming after you, and you're going to have to answer to us. And it was all NRA, and there was we don't want to glorify the shooter, but it really, I have 4 young children in public school, and if this had happened, God forbid, to one of my kids in one of their schools, my first thought is NRA. My first thought is I want to go after the person that did this, and no one seems to be focusing on that. I have my 12-year-old daughter here with me, and she knows just what she hears at school and on the news, and I said, honey, are you familiar with the NRA? And I explained everything to her, and I said, what if that happened in your school? Who would you be upset with? And she said, well, Mom, I'd be upset with the person that did it. I said, exactly. You'd be why isn't that anybody's first thought? The NRA didn't shoot those people. The NRA
Stephanie, that's my question. Aside from these kids are being used and manipulated by the anti-gun lobbies, some 15-year-old in study hall didn't set up all these buses to take him to Tallahassee. Some 16-year-old didn't get together with a bunch of his friends on the quad and set up this Washington march against gun violence. They're being manipulated. They're being used. They're being victimized once again. How does the NRA even get involved with this? That's what I don't understand. I mean, I had the mayor pro tem on. I get he just doesn't know what, one end of a AR-15 from the other. I can change that. But how does the NRA get involved? Because they are a pro-gun lobby, one of the nation's oldest civil rights organizations. They probably do more in instructing people and educating people than anyone else. No, these kids didn't just think up the NRA. They have been fed talking points by anti-gun lobbies. We're kill the NRA, not the students. They didn't come up with that on their own. Stephanie, good call. I appreciate it. Randy, thank you for waiting. I appreciate the wait. How you doing, Randy?
Pretty good, Rick. Long-time listener. I'm glad you took my call.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you a disclaimer. I'm not an NRA member. I am a concealed carry, and I have nothing larger than a pistol, so I don't really have a dog in this fight. I listen to the politicians and the talk show hosts and everybody wringing their hands about these issues, and I apply a theory that I've had all my life. Not every complex problem requires a complex solution. So here's my idea. I spent a lot of years in the military. If you've ever been on a military post and you walk around and see all the people, you don't see any guns, do you?
Nope.
Where are they? Where do they keep them? They don't take them home at night. Where are they? They're in armories. Where are the armories? The armories are in the police stations, in the military facilities all over the country. So there are places to lock up weapons. So if a 19-year-old wants to buy and can buy one of these weapons, why don't we let them store them in one of these facilities, and when they need to go to the range, they go check them out, and they go to the range and they bring them back, and they check them back in. And when they're 21, they can have the weapon. It controls it, that it's not with them in their car. It's not at home in a closet. It's locked up. And that gives the police time to look at this person, to check him out. You can put protocols in place, but you don't have to create anything new. All you have to do is develop a protocol to put the weapon where he can get to it. If a man who wants to commit a crime has to go into a police station or a National Guard armory to check it out, he's not going to buy it to begin with.
Well, there are purists that would say that flies in the face of the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms. I understand what you're saying. Trump came out and said that he is for enhanced background checks. I got no problem with that. I mean, if we find out somebody has some psychological issues, slow the process down a little bit. I appreciate the call. 4:25 the time. Eric Bushman standing by with the very latest breaking news, and we'll take a look at your afternoon drive. Back with your calls. One liberal Harvard professor thinks he's got the answer. I'll tell you what that is next. All right, 4:33 the time. I don't know if you know who Mike Rowe is, but I like him. Like him a lot. And what he wrote ran parallel to what we were talking about yesterday. You know, like most of you, we're overwhelmed with the pity for the victims and their families, and at the same time consumed with anger for the coward who chose to murder. Rage and sorrow, they're hard things to reconcile. And the more such things occur, the more apparent it becomes that there is nothing new to say. So forgive me if I repeat what was said after Vegas, after San Bernardino, and the list goes on. Evil, listen, evil is real. As long as humans have walked the earth, people have chosen to do evil things. That's what happened in Florida. A 19-year-old man chose to do an evil thing. He planned it. He executed it. He succeeded. So we should try to figure out why? Absolutely. Should we discuss the impact of video games, accessible firearms, single parents, no parents, powerful medications, social media, mental illness, bullying, or anything else we might think have encouraged him to choose evil over good? Of course, without question. But we should also stop confusing the influence of such things with the root cause. Because nothing in this man's past can possibly explain his decision to kill 17 people. If you believe otherwise, ask yourself why millions and millions of other people with a similar past don't make similar choices. The past does not equal the future. And that's the most comforting thing anybody can say to you. It's also the most disconcerting because the facts are undeniable. People from horrible backgrounds often become the epitome of kindness. And people with every imaginable advantage often go off and squander everything and do evil things. So the past does not equal the future. To the families of the victims, you can only offer your sincerest condolences, along with heartfelt wishes that the man who killed their loved ones is removed from the planet with all due speed. As for words, you can only repeat what others have said and ask that you remember those who confronted evil with courage. People like Aaron Feist, the football coach, who threw himself in front of the kids the killer was trying to murder. Beyond that, no one can offer anything but weakly attempt to prove that goodness also walks among us, just as surely as evil, in numbers far greater than our news feeds would lead us to believe. Mike Rowe is a great guy. If you don't follow him, you should. And I also believe that these kids are being victimized a second time. These kids in Washington, these kids in Tallahassee, they escaped the bullets from the shooter's gun, but they didn't escape the anti-gun lobby that is manipulating them, using them, trotting them out to carry their message. And in many ways, that's just as bad. Lewis, thank you for waiting. I appreciate your patience. How you doing?
All right. My issue is you can take the assault rifles away. But I have a question. You take a 45 semi-automatic or even a 45 automatic, how many clips can you fit in a gym bag?
Well, first of all, Lewis, nobody is supposing you take all assault rifles away. Number one, who gets to decide what an assault rifle is? There are hundreds of firearms that could feasibly say, well, that's a scary looking rifle, therefore it must be an assault rifle. But that's where the education comes in. That's why I asked the Mayor Pro Tem and extended the invitation to Mayor Rawlings. Come out. You can take any handgun that's a semi-automatic and fill up a gym bag with a bunch of magazines, and it takes about, 3 seconds to change magazines, if that long? You're right, Lewis. Susan in Saginaw. Susan, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Susan?
Rick, I'm doing great. Thank you for taking my call. I'm trying to maneuver this traffic and find where I'm going. Before I give you my point, I don't know if you've seen the thing on Facebook that they pass around that shows that this is what guns look like when the Constitution was written, and this is what guns look like today. They show an old musket or whatever, but what people are not considering is how much our society has changed. I by no means want to say anything about this young man. He is a victim of society. Does he deserve to lose his life over this? Absolutely. But I'm in favor of maybe changing the gun age to 21. Maybe that'll help some of these teenagers get through that awful high school angst. But all of these kids that are saying all this about in Florida, they're not talking about how he was treated, how they ignored him. Who is counseling these children? Are they going to go off on this great big old balloon from all these stars sending them money to do stuff, and then no one's going to catch them when they pull their money away and they fall? These children that are suffering, where are these people going to be next year? They're not going to be there supporting these children.
No, you make a very, very, very good point. Who is counseling? The anti-gun lobby is counseling. They are trotting these kids out as manifestations of what they want their agenda to take care of. And the kids don't know any better. I mean, when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, you only have so much life experience. You only have so many benchmarks. You only have so many high water marks. And so you're like a sponge. If somebody wordsmiths you properly, you soak up everything they say and then regurgitate it, parrot exactly what you've been told. And that's what's going on here. How'd the NRA get involved with this? These kids didn't come up with that on their own. I mean, when was the last time, let me ask you this, when was the last time you heard any news report or any of these kids quoted as listing the shooter's name? You haven't. It's all about the NRA and assault weapons. You have not heard anything about the shooter himself, because that does not serve the gun lobby, the anti-gun lobby. It doesn't serve them. It doesn't serve the if it bleeds, it leads mentality of the lamestream press. Think about that for a second. When was the last time you heard one of these teenagers, either in Tallahassee or Washington, D.C., cite the shooter? You haven't. Because it's not part of the narrative for the anti-gun lobby. You've heard nothing but the NRA, the NRA, the NRA, and Republicans. That should tell you everything you need to know about who's behind victimizing these kids a second time. All right, 4:46 the time. I'm Rick Roberts. This is the Court of Public Opinion. Your voice, your opinion, your attitude on the issues of the day. That's what we do every single day, Monday through Friday, in your afternoon drive from 2 to 5. Now, David, I extended Mayor Rawlings the same invitation that I extended to Mayor Pro Tem Caraway, and he accepted. Any word back?
No, right now the mayor is on retreat.
Retreat?
Yes, sir. We will probably have something back from him maybe tomorrow this time.
Okay. He's on retreat, huh?
That's what his assistant said.
Wonder what's up with that? Retreat. Huh.
They're probably working on their story.
Yeah. The Capitol is totally shut down while they try to figure out how to answer Rick Roberts. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Let's go to Mike. Mike, thanks for waiting. How you doing, Mike?
Hi, Rick. I love your show. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Talking about your meeting with the Mayor Pro Tem, I just wanted to give you an idea. You may already be ahead of me. Nobody ever talks about the bullets. When you hear about shootings, the gun is only half of it. When you have your meeting with the Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sure you're going to show him some, hunting-style rifles and some of the mean, ugly black guns.
Right.
I would hand him a 7mm mag or a 300 mag, 30-06, and then just show him the difference between that and the little 223 that's coming out of the AR-15. One of the reasons that the AR-15 is so popular is because it's cheap to shoot.
Right.
The ammo's cheap. You can buy that cheap Full Metal Jacket stuff for, pennies compared to a hunting bullet.
Well, it was obvious as our conversation went on. Now, had I come on and just lambasted him, we may never have gotten as far as we got, but it was obvious that he didn't know the difference. And I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with that unless you're speaking like you're an expert in the field. He just didn't know. He even asked at one point, well, how much damage does that AR do? Well, the 223 is a relatively benign round. I mean, it'll kill you. There's no doubt about it. But it's not like some of the other rounds that can be. Well, he said he had a shotgun, and he also said he had a 38. I almost said, well, you need to go up a couple of calibers because all you're going to do is make somebody mad. But I mean, I don't think he knows. I think his intent was to speak as an authority, and AR-15s ought to be banned because somehow, some way, they have a specific use in killing people. I just don't think he knows, but he will see the difference. Right. And you know as well as I do, there's 100 different rifles that are scary looking and could be called assault rifles, and in fact, they're just semi-automatic rifles.
Right. You know, everybody screams about the high-powered AR-15. If they could really see the difference between what high-powered really is, what people hunt with, I think they would be shocked. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when people say, Rick, what's the best home defense weapon? The first thing that comes to mind wouldn't be a 223 AR-15 Colt Sporter. It'd be a 12 gauge, probably a Remington or Mossberg.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, my friend, I appreciate the call very, very much. Let's go to Robert. Robert in Fort Worth. Robert, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Robert?
Doing well, Rick. You know, as I've been listening to this conversation for the last few days, and I would say that these people that are out there blaming the NRA and yelling for gun reform have access to the same information that you and me and millions of other people across this country. And I would say that, well, I have a question. Why in the hell aren't they jumping up and down screaming for FBI reform? The FBI had people call them and tell them about this kid. They show up in Mississippi and talk to a guy that's seen a video. And then a few months later, somebody that knows the kid calls the FBI. You would think that somebody at the FBI would put two and two together and say, hey, wait a minute, that video we seen a few months ago, that name matches this guy. Maybe we ought to go take a look. But they couldn't be bothered to do that. The FBI is to blame. The people who are out there jumping up and down and screaming and squealing about gun reform, those people are to blame. The people who jumped up there and complained and griped and pissed and moaned about all the gun violence after Vegas, those people are to blame for what just happened. And the reason they're to blame is because they're getting political and they're doing nothing to solve the problem. You want to keep kids in this country from getting shot up at school? Put doors on every building of every schoolhouse in America that are still have magnetic locks and can't be penetrated. Put 3 or 4 or 5 people in that building with a firearm to protect those kids and those teachers instead of leaving them out there being vulnerable because you want to pass some kind of political agenda. They can all go to hell as far as I'm concerned. They don't know what they're talking about, and they're going to continue to get more people in this country killed unless they sit down and have a rational conversation about reality. And gun control is not it.
Well, the reality is the human factor. And, we didn't end up in this jackpot over the course of the last 6 months or a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. The societal shift, the imploding of society, it took a while to get there. It's going to take a while to turn it back around. But if we don't, this place won't be worth living in.
No doubt. Absolutely no doubt.
So, listen, I appreciate the call, Robert, very, very much. I don't know what to say. I thought today when I would come in You know, I look at these kids being trotted out on stage for all intents and purposes in Tallahassee, Florida's capital, in Washington, D.C., and of course preparing for the Washington March Against Gun Violence. And all I hear is the NRA. What does the NRA have to do with any of this? It doesn't make any sense. But it's the talking points. It's the 3x5 cards. It's the coaching, the counseling by the anti-gun lobby. And man, that's the worst kind of manipulation. These kids have already suffered enough. They need to go back to being teenagers and making the mistakes and saying the things that teenagers do. But the anti-gun lobby got them to carry a message. And they don't even know that they're being manipulated. All right, that's going to do it for me. Mark Levin, he's up next. God's blessings on each and every one of you. Whether we agree or not, that's always my priority. I'll be back with you tomorrow at 2, your afternoon drive, on News Talk 820 WBAP.
And everybody else was just like us, soaking in the rain, baking in the sun. Don't quit till the job gets done. That's the only way I know. Don't stop till everything's gone. Straight ahead, never turn around. Don't back up, don't back down. A full throttle, wide open. You get tired and you don't show it. Dig a little deeper when you